I believe I was attending a couple of them, and it was related to policies. It was, and last session with Jasmine was great around all the overall the security piece of it, and just keeping that in mind, and we are moving forward, and we are going to look for the hybrid security, how we are going to manage and everything. So first of all, there is I know there is a basically program going on along with this, and there is some exciting prizes to win. So please feel free to participate into it and make sure you do your 100% participation into it. Uh, Specific to this, there are special cause that India Cloud Security Summit guys has specifically they have put like their leg forward into it, and that's a really noble cause they're working on. So please do support them for it if you can in any manner. So coming to the topic of the day is going to be Azure Arc, and we are going to understand how we are going to manage our cloud identity, how we are going to manage multiple cloud environment, your on-premises, your uh, any third-party co-location environments all together in a single pane using Azure Arc. My name is Tushar Kumar. I am a cloud security lead. I'm basically, before that, I have worked as extensively as a cloud solution architect. So security has came into me as a day in, day out job. And always when we go with the well architected framework, right? So one of the most important pillars that comes out is security. So looking at the overall environment and helping enterprises move, right, what I have realized is most of the cases, wherever I see the most focus of any organization is first thing is cost always, because everyone runs behind the money, that they want to keep the cost low, but still they want the most secure environment, and they want to make the operations cost as low as possible. So moving forward, today's agenda is going to be, we are going to do a quick Azure Arc introduction. So if you are pretty much aware of Azure Arc, a first few minutes is going to be a little bit boring for you, but definitely we are going to cover why we are looking at Azure Arc, what was the need specifically for this solution, why Microsoft has launched this one, and what are the benefits, what are the possibilities we have along with if we are going with Azure Arc, how we are going to manage the identity in Azure Arc. And I have a quick demo that basically once you onboard a system into Arc, how it makes it easy to access all the other Azure resources whenever you are trying to like do some automation, whenever you are trying to implement some security measures and all. So moving forward, so first question arises is, right, so whenever we are looking at any cloud transformation, right, I have been part of numerous cloud transformation journeys, and any cloud transformation that starts if the driver is data center exit, right? People tend to think that, okay, we are going to do a cloud transformation and we are going to leave our on-premises data center fully, and we will be moving to cloud. And in 98% of the cases, I'll say, I'm being quite specific with the numbers, but it's in the most of the cases, what happens is you leave a lot of stuff behind and you move like a majority of stuff on cloud. Either it can be because of compatibility, it can be the reason can be you need the data nearby to your sites, like let's say if you're running a hospital or something, you need the patient data available on site, you need the databases on site. uh, Similarly, if there is any application which is like a latency sensitive, that uh, you cannot even afford the latency that you are going to get. It is going to be in a fraction, like a fraction of seconds, but still you cannot afford that within your application. So there are 10 different factors that you will face that will make you keep your application on premise or wherever you're hosting your application as it is. there might be some challenges around the networking requirements, there might be some challenges around the software requirement, application requirement, or from the platform requirement. So when this situation arises, right, everyone tends to panic that, okay, now whenever I'm working with any CIO and they're like, okay, so now we have an operational challenge that where we are looking at a on-premises infrastructure, though either I have to make sure that I have people available for both the environments, they who knows the cloud concepts as well as who knows the on-premises concepts, or we have to have multiple people managing the cloud environment separately, or we have to manage or the on-premises environment, or we have to find a partner which is going to give us uh, both capabilities actually. And even finding a partner with both capabilities, right, from my industry experience, it's quite hard because the people who are skilled in cloud technologies, they want to stay away from the on-premises server infrastructure and everything. And people who are working in traditional uh, or data center scenarios, right? They, even though they are interested looking at the cloud boom, but they are pretty much more comfortable in doing what they are doing at this point of time. So finding a blend of that is quite difficult. So when this question arises, right, the solution that everyone was looking at is how we can unify, how we can bring everything in pane, one single pane of view. So when we are looking at Azure Arc, right, Azure Arc basically brings everything in a single pane of view. Okay. And I was talking about a challenges, right? It's a real world customer challenges in terms of complexity, in terms of the regulations, and in terms of latency, in terms of being it a legacy system, and inconsistency, and all those. These are real scenarios that we see it. And if you're working in cloud, if you have worked in cloud migration and transformation journeys for your customers, definitely these things must have came and must have arisen with your customers that, okay, we cannot move so and so application because of some compliance need. And even though if we are keeping it on premises, how we are going to manage this one. So what Azure Arc gives you an ability to manage your hybrid environment, basically in a single control plane. So basically what you're going to get is you are going to onboard your all your is I'll say your entire digital estate, which is your on-premises. You're going with multi-cloud. You're going with like a IoT services and all those into a single view pane. So you must have noticed over here, like, right? I've been talking about your on-premises scenarios, and suddenly there is a quick view of AWS, VMware, and Google Cloud, and it can be any cloud platform. So basically, what happens is when you are talking about on premises, right, and when you're talking about Azure, so there is one cloud environment which is Azure, and rest of all cloud environment, right, we can treat them as I'll say we can treat them as an on-premises environment itself, because for Azure, there is a very famous saying, right? It's not cloud, it's just someone else's computer. So basically, what we are saying over here, right? So for Azure, AWS is someone else's data center, someone else's on-premises data center. For AWS, Azure is the same. So basically, all the systems, all the services that you're running in a different cloud environment, it will be treated as a external resources, as a external services for Azure. So you can with the help of Azure Arc, the ability that you are getting over here is you are not just looking at the services that is hosted in your data center, but also the services that are hosted in AWS And when I say services, there is definitely a limitations. You cannot go with all the AWS platform as a service that you get. You cannot integrate all the services that is available within AWS, but most of the infrastructure services that we have, we can bring it to Azure Arc. Similarly, it goes for all the clouds. Either you go with the VMware, either you go with the IBM cloud, either you go with the Oracle cloud infrastructure. Wherever there is an infrastructure involved, you can bring those things into your Azure Arc environment. So basically, it gives you a full view, and it is quite compatible with your Azure stack. So it gets plug and play. So you must have heard it's a topic on its own, the Azure stack, but you can bring in your Azure Stack servers with the help of Azure Arc itself into a single pane over here. So if I move forward, right? So basically, if you see the overall architecture of Azure Arc, right? So you have all the cloud environments. If you can see on this, right? So you have, I'll just put in the pen. So here you have all your external environments, being it AWS, being it Oracle, being it IBM Cloud, being it Google Cloud. Yeah, sorry for that. There was a certain disturbance. Yeah. So any environment that you have, being it AWS, Google Cloud, Oracle, IBM, anything that you have, it will go under the Azure Arc umbrella. And what will happen is it will be topped up with Azure Resource Manager, which is the ARM, which is the backbone of overall Azure environment. So when I say Azure environment, right? So you must have heard that overall Azure runs on an engine called Azure Resource Manager. So you might have heard about the Azure ARM templates as well. So let's not confuse this with the Azure ARM templates. It's basically Azure ARM is the backbone of your overall Azure environment. So any operation that you are performing, any services that you are spinning up, it is basically using the underlying Azure Resource Manager to fulfill your needs, to fulfill the work, fulfill the infrastructure that you are provisioning, the services that you are provisioning. So basically, when you put Azure Arc on top of your own environment or your other cloud environments, right? It gives you an ability to integrate with a lot of services in terms of security, in terms of your access control, as well as it helps you organizing your overall environment, doing an inventory, uh, basically any kind of environment automation that you want to perform, and a very important piece, which is keeping the governance and compliance within your environment as well. And I believe if you have joined Tiago's session, you must have heard about policies, you must have heard about the blueprints and a lot of logs. So we will just quickly touch upon those as well, that uh, how you can leverage that using Azure Arc as well. And all of these, the benefit of Azure Arm, right? And if you go back a couple of months back when Bicep was released, right? And the biggest benefit behind Bicep was that it is tightly integrated with Arm. So what the reason why it is a benefit, because Azure Resource Manager basically gives you access to all the tools and experiences in terms of connecting it to marketplace, providing you PowerShell, basically PowerShell extensions, providing you CLI extensions, providing you APIs specifically for doing REST API calls and getting what exactly you need from Azure Cloud. And it is very much integrated with the overall Azure ecosystem. So it actually opens up endless possibilities in terms of accessing the resources, managing the resources, and also working with and also day in day out job with your Azure resources as well as your on-premises resources. Basically, if you come from a background of SECM, and if you must have heard about SECM, right? There is a lot of things what we used to do with SECM, and if you're bringing everything into cloud, and you don't do the usual update management and everything with SECM on Azure. Mostly, you are using update management and all. So for even for your Windows servers, for your Linux servers, you can use where you were using SCCM to do that, you can now use Azure Update Management once you have onboarded the servers with Azure Arc. So that will give you a less operation because your servers are running on a single pane. Basically, your servers, even though if they are outsiders, they are looking like you'll be getting a feel that your servers are running in Azure itself. So basically, you'll be able to do all the update management stuff. You'll be able to collect logs accordingly. And even with the MIECM, you didn't had the option to go with the Linux virtual machines, but with the Azure Update Management, you can do it for Azure. You can do it for Linux virtual machines as well. So there are certain things that is not available as well, like and with the SCCM or MIECM, we used to do software updates with on our client machines. Like right now, you must have you must be using Intune or something to specifically manage your client machines. So that you cannot achieve with Azure Arc itself, but yeah, but a lot of other capabilities in terms of your keeping your inventory, your server change manage, basically tracking your changes, running custom scripts specific to this one. And I remember this is a really cool feature, and I have given a solution a couple of months back to a customer. Right, they wanted to run a specific script on a virtual machine running on their on premises, and they wanted to expose it via an API. And basically they didn't want it to specifically to go make that machine connected to internet, but they wanted some like it was a privileged script that needs to be running on that needs to be triggered externally with the Azure Data Factory function whenever it completes. So there was a custom script extension that got installed into that on-premises machine, and it got integrated with the REST. You can call REST API on a specific server, and you can pass on the parameters, you can pass on the command directly, and it will go back and run that command on that. That gives you a actual level of comfort over here, that you can go back and run some scripts on your server as well with the custom script extension. Even though if it is for some configuration management or it is for some changes into your virtual machine. So as you can see over here, right, it's basically giving you a single view. So it's just a screenshot from Azure portal itself, and it's not even mine. I just looked out for this one. So basically, you can see over here you have a couple of file servers. So all the icons that you can see over here, which looks a little different, that basically Azure Arc server. And even if you read it over here, so you can see all the servers in a single pane, and it does gives you a little bit of different feel, but once you go inside this, it will give you a similar feel as your Azure virtual machine. Definitely, you will be able to do a little less operations what you can do on your Azure virtual machine, but definitely it will be from operation perspective, from security perspective, and from monitoring perspective, right, you will be getting enough options to manage all these virtual machines. And even I have seen customers just giving, instead of giving a full access to these servers directly, they have just given access to their MSPs or their team who is monitoring to through the role-based access control, which I'm going to talk about in coming slides, to these servers only, instead of giving them like a proper access to their VPN and giving them access to the environment itself. So moving forward, uh, we talked about policies, right? So basically, policies are going to be everywhere. once you onboard your servers into Once you onboard your servers into Azure Arc, basically what you are going to get is all the policies that you are applying. So basically what happens is once you onboard any server to Azure Arc, right, what it does is it basically goes into some resource group. And as you are aware of policies, that you can apply it over any scope. So if your policy is applied over a subscription, that is well and good. Your resource group will be covered into that itself. But if you have applied that policy on a specific let's say you want your on-premises servers or your Amazon servers to be compliant with a specific needs or some specific things that you want to check, that you want to ensure on your Amazon servers, then you will be applying on that specific resource group these policies, that okay, so and so policies will be applied, and if there is any changes, if there is any deviation into it, you will be seeing this compliance state as a non-compliant. So once you see this non-compliant, well and good, try time to write an escalation email. Happy days for you, not happy days for someone who is maintaining the compliance. So basically, this is how you are going to extend your current policies, your current environment, like your current environment is a cloud environment, whatever standards it is following right now, you can make sure that overall digital estate is following the same standards, and you have a single pane of glass to look into. If your compliance teams want some sort of reports, you can go here, you can you can generate a report from the Azure portal itself with all your assets. Okay, excuse me for this one. I think I copy pasted and never edited this one. But yeah, you can see the update management, as I was talking about update management, right? So you can see over here, all these resources, basically, these are the non-Azure resources. So basically, we have a couple of virtual machines, which is running on Linux and which is not running within cloud. And as well as we have a couple of these machines which is not running on cloud, and we are updating these machines through update management, because we have onboarded these machines to Azure Arc. So basically, once you onboard a machine into Azure Arc, what you are going to get is all the machines will show up into your update management, and you can start putting the automation into it. Moving forward, so okay, quick question. How many of you have heard of this feature called Auto Manage? I will just quickly see if there is any raise of hand, if there is any questions. So we have a question from John. Are those clouds have any distinctions to each other? Yeah, definitely. So all the clouds, basically, once you are seeing all those machines, right, so basically what you can do is you can group them, or you can put it into specific resource groups that you want to put them into. So it will not be a challenge for you to distinguish between multiple clouds if you are having multiple cloud environments, and you want to pick one of those. Okay, so if you haven't heard about Auto Manage, right? So I'll just quickly give you a quick brief overview of what is Auto Manage. So if I just highlight this one, okay, let me see. So you can see auto manage is quite simple. So but what Microsoft has came up with, right? So basically auto manage gives you a capability that you can put some best practices for your environments. So let's say you are working as a cloud architect, and you have mentioned that okay, any machine that is coming in your environment, right, it has to be set up with backups, it has to be set up with log analytics, it has to be the logs has to be flowing, or something, some other custom criteria that you want to fulfill. So basically, when you put in policies, you can get a certain level of details, you can get certain level of information about your environments, but it is not basically an enforcing one. So basically, or what auto manage gives, right, you can create your custom profiles, or you can use these two recommended ones. So basically, one is for production, one is for your dev test kind of environment. So Microsoft has given some best practices around production and dev test, but you can also come up with your own. So what it does is it includes all the insights to be configured, your backups to be configured. So what you will be doing, any machine which is onboarded to auto manage, right, there is an automation account running in the back end, and automatically puts all the practices that your organization specifically requires for any machine, for any machine which is getting onboarded. So you can just enable your auto manage with the machines. It is for your Azure machines as well as your Arc machines. So it will automatically put all those parameters, all those, let's say, backup, enable backup and everything into it. If I move forward specifically, and this is what going to actually interest the security crowd, in terms of you can onboard all the machines into Defender for cloud. So basically, let's say, if you can see over here, right? So we have this AWS resource type, AWS account, you have AWS account, you have GCP projects. All of these can be onboarded into your Defender for cloud, and any machine which is giving any security alerts, you will be seeing directly into your Defender for cloud. Once you have onboarded into Azure Arc and you have activated, you have just the same way you apply for Azure virtual machine, right? You will be putting the same, you'll be following the same steps, just you will be selecting this Azure Arc machine. But and the thing is, it will come up as as a normal Azure virtual machine, just with a different logo. So there will be no issues. There will be no additional steps that you need to take once your machine is onboarded to Arc in order to activate the Defender for Cloud for your machines. And all the alerts that is coming in, it will come up over here only with the same with the similar way as you get from your Azure virtual machines. Okay, I'll just move forward. Okay, so just looking at the pricing, right? Because this is one of our really cool features from Azure, and we want to understand that, okay, how much it is going to cost, and when we are proposing to our customers or when we are proposing to our business, what is the cost that we have to keep in mind? So basically, all the additional Azure services. And when I say additional Azure services, it is going to be any automation that you're going to put in, any monitoring that you're going to put in, any security, Defender, Sentinel, backup, log analytics, or any kind of thing that you are going to put in. You are going to pay for that. That's going to be the normal cost that you can get from Azure Pricing Calculator. But all the control plane functionality, right? Like if you want to keep your environment governed, like putting your environments under a management groups, putting your on-premises data center, AWS data center into under a same management group, and applying activity logs, getting activity logs into it, putting RBACs into it, putting tagging into it. So those all will be free for you. So there is no additional cost. So basically, when we are onboarding a machine into cloud, there is no additional cost till the time you are not actually configuring it with any additional services. Like you start ingesting the logs, you start paying for the logs. You start doing the network watcher things, you'll start paying for the network watcher. And same for Sentinel. If you are ingesting the security logs to log analytics, you are definitely going to pay for Sentinel backups. It goes same for all. And same for Azure Defender. If you're onboarding a virtual machine as basically as an Azure virtual machine, you pay something. I think it's $15, or it varies based on the region. Uh, no, it doesn't vary for it. So basically, it's a $15. So you will be paying the same amount for that. So whatever the cost is, I'm not quoting a cost over here, but whatever the cost is that you're paying, you'll be paying the similar amount of cost for a Arc-enabled machine as well. Okay, so this basically gives you a comfort that, okay, you can bring your systems to cloud, and you can just think of that there is no additional cost. So whenever you are whenever you are going to apply new services on top of it, you are paying for that only. You are not paying anything upfront. So far, any questions? I'll just quickly peek through the comment window. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah. So now we are getting into a really, really scary piece of it. So let's look at the Azure Arc flow. So this mostly revolves around the identity, that what all things happens once you onboard a system to Azure Arc, right? And this is a pretty much static use. You can see, you can just tell by the looks of it. This is not my diagram. This is the Microsoft diagram saying that how the flow works. So basically, I'll try to make it a little simple for you. So whenever you're an Azure admin does, right, so when you have to create when you have to create a principal, uh, you have to be an Azure admin. First thing is that you cannot create you cannot create a service principal, and you cannot create a user without once you without having admin rights, right? So basically what happens is the admin creates a short living, basically it creates a client secret. So basically what it does is, once you are running the script which is required to onboard the server to cloud, right, it asks you for authentication. Once you do the authentication, it basically creates a lot of, basically, the stuff that we are seeing on this side, which we are not responsible for. It happens automatically with the scripts that comes when you are running the script that comes as an onboarding script. So basically there is a manage identity that gets created, and we'll talk about manage identity in the coming slide. There is basically a manage identity and service principal. We'll talk about this specifically in coming slides. And there are three components, like there is a HIMDS, which is called host instance metadata service. There is guest configuration extension service, and there is a guest configuration Azure Arc service that gets created. Basically, the HIMDS, there is an account gets created, which basically it's a virtual account, and it has the least privileges, which works in the background just to provide all the details, to your hybrid compute resource provider. And also there is a guest configuration service extension runs, which is basically the credential that is provided, right? The managed identity credentials, I'll say. So basically it's based on that, and it basically stores on your server itself, just to give you, or it basically stays on your local system. And whenever you are authenticating it, it is basically responsible for providing all the details into it. Okay, then comes the guest configuration. So basically this is a redundant part. I'll say this is basically what gives you all the configurations and all the Arc service. Basically, it is created under the same local file system. So all those configuration related things goes from here only. So with all together these, right, your system gets onboarded into it, and you don't have to worry about all these specifically, because it's the agent, the connected machine agent, which is running on your Arc connected server. It is responsible for that. Anything related to log, there is going to be a log analytics agent. There is going to be a custom script extension which works as an agent. There is going to be a dependency agent which is going to basically report for all the dependencies, all the connections of that particular machine. Okay. So this is how the actual flow works. If you want to keep the access to the least privileged ones, so there are two roles. There are two built-in roles, I'll say, which is one is connecting, basically Azure Connected Machine onboarding role, and another one is Azure Connected Machine resource administrator role. Sorry for this one, I just scribbled onto it. So yeah, I'll just do. So there are two roles that you can provide specifically for managing the resources over here. Okay. So yeah, we talked about manage identity, right? So basically manage identity is nothing but it's equal to an enterprise application. So you might have done that uh, earlier when managed identity was not there, right? For any application to authenticate specifically with your Azure AD tenant, right? What we used to do, we used to create an enterprise application, and we used to get the credential of that, some long key and a long basically, and a long tenant ID and all those we used to hard code, or maybe we used to put it in the key vault. We used to fetch that whenever it is required. There was a lot of process involved when we used to do when you used to go through this way. So manage identity is basically I'll just explain it in a simple manner, right? So whenever you authenticate to your Azure environment, right? You are working as you are basically you have the authorization to go to some places, and you will be able to see those things. So manage identity basically gives your resources that kind of access. So basically, as you have at xyz at someorganization.com. So basically, in your AD, as we used to have in past in our system in our AD days, right? That we used to have the computer configuration or computers registered. So basically, this is services, whatever services that you're using. Maybe if you enable a managed identity for your app service, so your app service will have an identity within your Active Directory. And if you want to provide access, your app service access to a SQL database, you can tell the SQL database, okay, this is the app service and this is the identity associated with it, and this can communicate with you whatever level of role-based access control. With the role-based access control, whatever level of role that you provide, it will be able to perform all those actions over there. So basically, manage identity is making the services like us like a normal user, and they can communicate between any services which they have authorization to access. So basically, what Azure Arc does, right? It creates a managed identity for whatever resources that you are onboarding. So if it is if it is a AWS virtual machine, it will also get a managed identity. If it is a uh, on-premises machine, it will also get a managed identity associated with it. And how this helps actually. Sorry. So basically, when you are accessing any Azure resources, right? So let's say you have onboarded your machine to Azure Arc, and you have a requirement that you want to do a certificate management, and it's a classic example when it comes to Azure Arc. And you might have seen a lot of, if you just Google it, you'll see a lot of tutorials around it, and you'll see a lot of videos around it, that how you can simplify your certificate management within uh, your environment with the help of Azure Arc. Because Azure Arc, you can put in a custom extension on all your machines. You can put a managed identity to authenticate with a key vault, and you can put a certificate in your key vault, and that extension will automatically sync up all the certificates into your virtual machines. So that actually cuts out a lot of pain managing the certificates on the machines, which we used to do with our ADs in the previous days. So let's talk about the Azure Arc onboarding, right? So we'll talk about two things over here, just a quick one, and then we'll jump on a demo. We'll see how it works, and how we can like onboard any machines, and how we are going to like use all those features, the cool features that I just talked about. So basically, when you're onboarding an Azure Arc machine, right, what it does is it gets installed into the connected machine. It basically it gets installed into your C drive. It goes into your program files, and as a connected machine agent, and it puts in two environment variables. So basically, one is IDMS endpoint, and the other one is identity endpoint. So basically, IDMS is basically your instance metadata service. So basically, if you look at IDMS, right? IDMS, when you do on a Azure virtual machine, so basically there is a IP address. I think it's 169.254 something something. So it's basically a non-routable IP address that you get, and uh, you can actually fetch the credentials. You can actually fetch the metadata about the machine just search for the IDMS in Azure Virtual Machine. You'll get an URL. Basically, it's an endpoint called 169.254 something something. There is an IP address you will be getting. It's a non-routable IP address. It stays within the virtual machine itself. It never goes out, and it will return the metadata about your basically your identity stuff. So basically, once you install it, what it does is it puts these two environment variable, just because the 169.254 IP that we have in regular virtual machines, in regular Azure virtual machines, it doesn't mean anything once you go out of Azure. So what it does is it puts these two endpoints, just so you can, whenever you're trying to get the client secret, whenever you are trying to get the access token, you will be able to achieve with this. And it will make more sense once we are looking into the demo. Similarly, once you have everything onboarded, right, so there is a simple step. So if you have heard about Azure Lighthouse, it's really cool feature that comes with Azure. So basically, the thing is, Azure Lighthouse is well known by managed services providers to provide like their services through Azure Lighthouse. But I'll say, basically, I don't believe in that statement. Azure Lighthouse is a really cool feature. Let's say you have a tenant A, you have a tenant B, and you want to see both of the tenants as in a single pane. You want to see both of the whatever subscription, whatever services that you have in a single view. You will be able to see that, and even you will be able to reference them. And it has helped me a lot looking at a couple of migration scenarios which looked impossible without Azure Lighthouse. So Azure Lighthouse is one of the cool features that we have. Just try it out. But basically, the reason why I have brought it up here is, once you have Azure Lighthouse and you are looking at a managed services provider to help you out monitoring, say, with security and like managing your BCDR, your service health reports, and everything, you can actually use Azure Arc to bring all those servers into a single pane, bringing them into like a different like into a different tenants or a single tenant, and then the service provider can do a lighthouse connection directly to your environment with the limited access that you provide, and they will be able to manage, and it will save you a lot of overhead putting their agents or putting like providing them access in a different 10 different places. Okay, so with this, I'll just stop and I'll just go with a quick demo. So far, any questions? Uh, I don't see any, so I'll just stop sharing and I'll share my full screen. Okay, perfect. So I hope everyone can see my screen.
Yes.
Perfect. So okay, so what I have done, like I was just playing around, and basically I'm traveling right now, so I don't have my access to my on-premises network. So what I have done is I have just onboarded my local computer. So the system that I'm working on right now is, so if I go here, I do CMD, and if I do host name, so you'll see the same name. So this is the HHLT 329. So basically what I did is I basically onboarded my local computer into Azure Arc. So the way you do it is you just go here, you click on add infrastructure. It will ask you, there are a couple of options that you have. You can go with the SQL server, you can go with the Kubernetes clusters. And if you just do this was more around the security features of Azure. Go uh, more deeper into Kubernetes cluster and all, right, it actually gives you a power to extend the AKS functionality onto your on premises as well. So So just do a little bit of digging around that. It's not possible to cover everything in this session. We have 10 minutes left. So you just go here, add a server. I just did this add generate script, and what it will be telling you about couple of prerequisites that you need to have some connectivity, you need to have the administrator permissions, and basically it is going to ask you the next question is which resource group that you want to put in. So the same way I mentioned, right, that you can put your policy on a specific resource group, or you can put your policy on the overall subscription as well. So you just pick this, I just picked this resource group, you just give it a region specific, that where exactly this you want to this to show up, and then that's it. So there are a couple of options as well. You want to connect it through proxy server. You want to connect it to private endpoint. If you have a site-to-site connectivity, then you can go with the private endpoint route as well. And there are certain features that is in public preview at this moment around private endpoint. So if you want to give it a try, just go with it. And once you go with this, I'll just keep it public. There are a couple of predefined, I'll say predefined tags that there. You can either choose to ignore them, or you can put those, or you can put your own tags over here. And then it will give you a script. So basically what you're going to do is what I have done here. So I can just quickly show you. Yeah. So here, what I have done is I have run the same script, and it has basically onboarded my machine to Azure Arc. So that's the reason we are seeing the machine into the cloud environment. Okay. So we are just quickly going to try one thing since we have 9 minutes left. So let's quickly go and see one thing. Okay. So now I have this machine uh, onboarded into my Azure Arc environment. I have one key vault over here. I have one key vault over here. So basically, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to access a key vault secret from that virtual machine that I have from my local machine. And I don't want to authenticate. I don't want to put in my credential, or I don't want to put any credentials like service principal or anything. I don't want to create anything like that. So what I'll be doing is I'll be just going here in access control, and I am going to do add. So it depends on your key vault policy. So basically you can go from here, and what I have done is I'm just maintaining access configuration over here. So you just go with the vault policies. You select the machine. So basically you can see my machine name over here, but I'll just quickly show you another one just to make sure. Select everything, which is not a best practice, but definitely we are doing this. So I'll just search for HSLT. So you can see there is a specific ID, and if you see multiple over here, right, maybe there might be a chance that you can see multiple over here. So it can be always fetched out the ID of this with the resource graph, or going with the PowerShell methodology, that you can fetch out what is the ID of your particular resource managed identity. So you can pick this, you can provide the access that you want. Like let's say, and in my case, I have given it all permission to keys, all permission to secrets, and some permission to this one. Okay. So now if I go to my secrets here, I have a demo one, but let's just create another one. So I'll just give it a name, demo 2, and secret is it. Let's see how good I can type blindly. But yeah, so let's just create this one. I will go back to my PowerShell window, and I'll show you a small script. Don't worry, you don't have to do it while you're actually working in an actual environment. So let's say if you are doing if you're just using the Azure CLI, right? You can just do AZ login dash dash identity. So you can just look for whatever you're using. If you're using the .NET SDK, the SDK is already equipped with managed identity authentication. So you don't need to worry about this one. You can just do simple. you can just use the same methodology what you are using to authenticate with manage identity, and you will be able to log into this. I have just done it through REST APIs. So what I am doing over here, right? So it's the same metadata over here, the same link that gets. There was some issue with my laptop, so it was not picking up the environment variable. So I have hard coded it over here. But if I go here and if I see my advanced system settings, and if I look at my environment variables, so you will be able to see there are two and basically system variables over here, which is one is identity endpoint and IDMS endpoint. So I am using the identity endpoint over here, and identity endpoint basically is, I have hard coded it over here. So if you run this one, it is basically give you the token, which is going to be used for authentication in to your Azure environment and to the services that you are looking at. And basically, if I just do one thing, if I just run this one in a non-privileged environment, right? So you can see I've already just did a test of this one. So it will say access denied. The reason why is because we don't want a non-privileged user to go into your environment, run the same script, get the access ID, and then use it for a purpose that you are not supposed to do. So basically, it is giving you the access. It is giving you uh, it is basically restricting the non-privileged user for getting the access to access ID without having the admin permission. So if I go here and see, so basically we have got the token now. Within these three lines, I'm doing nothing. I'm just picking out the key vault secret from here. So I'll just jump through here. We'll go to demo 2, and I'm here. I'll just pick out this secret identifier. I'll replace this with this one. So what I'm doing is I'm doing a REST API call for the Azure Key Vault with the authorization with the same token that I have accessed with this localhost with this localhost URL. And let's just wait for this. API must be, oh, sorry, that's my bad. Let's just replace this. I just missed a half piece of it. And here you go. So my typing is really bad, so it worked. So basically, this is what I have typed in the secret of it. So we can just quickly verify this. So that's our secret, and now we have got it. So we can use my I can use my machine. I can code an application which will fetch a secret from the key vault, and this machine is my local machine, and this is using managed identity, and without any credentials it is able to access the key vault, and it is able to fetch that with the application token itself. And you don't need to worry about your expiring service principals, or you don't need to worry about keeping your client ID and client secret into some specific positions. And basically it all happens in the background, and Microsoft rotates it and keeps it up to date uh, always. So is there any question before we wrap up this one? Seems like we seems like I have done quite a good job.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. In that case, I'll just say a quick thank you to all the sponsors over here, and we'll move on to our next session, which is with Victor, and it sounds really interesting. So stay tuned for that one.
Guys, if you have any question, please ask. Please unmute yourself and you can ask to Tushar. Tushar, it's very interesting. Yeah, seriously, I learned lots of few things.
That's great, Rohit. And my apologies, there is some construction work going on, so that I was like there was
No,
some disturbance.
nothing. There is no any disturbance. Everything is fine.
That's great, Rohit. In that case, I have invested in a good headset.